everyone, and welcome back to Boys Town History Week. My name is Gabby, and I am joined here today with two very special guests from Boys Town, one of whom you have seen all week long in our other History Week videos. We've got Tom Lynch, and then we also have Dr. Patrick Tyler, and we're going to be talking about the global impact of the Boys Town model. So some of you may already be familiar with the Boys Town model, but you might not know maybe all of the history about it. And for some other viewers, you maybe have never heard of the Boys Town model. So it will be really exciting to teach you all about that during History Week and talk about how this model and Father Flanagan's life-saving work has really expanded across the globe in terms of saving children and healing families. Of course, we do have a giveaway. We've been doing giveaways all week. So if you are watching live and you're interested in winning this goodie bag that you see here on the screen with a Second Chances t-shirt, as well as a few books and a calendar, go ahead and like this video and make sure to leave a comment below to let us know that you're entered, and then we'll go ahead and choose the winner. Tom and Patrick, how are you both doing today?
Good.
Yeah, doing great, Gabby. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining. Tell us a little bit more about yourselves and your role at Boys Town. Tom, would you like to begin?
Well, my name is Tom Lynch. I'm the Director of Community Programs here at Boys Town. One of my jobs is historian for Boys Town, and I've been with Boys Town for 39 years now.
Wow, wonderful. Great to have you on. And thanks for teaching us so much about Boys Town's history this week.
You're welcome.
Dr. Tyler, what about you?
Yep, so I'm Patrick Tyler. I'm the Senior Director of our Child and Family Translational Research Center here at Boys Town. So we provide research support to all of our youth care programs, and then we work with our kids, families, and our staff to conduct research to try and solve some of the complex problems that we're facing in our communities.
Awesome. So what drew you both to this work here at Boys Town, and what inspires you most about our mission today? Tom?
I started here at Boys Town. I was a college intern in a museum program, just as the Hall of History is being created. And I worked in the archives, and when it was completed, they said, would you like to stay and be part of Boys Town? And it was a great honor. And when I started here, we had many former boys who had grown up here with Father Flanagan, and they told me stories and their experiences with Father Flanagan and how Boys Town changed their lives. And I realized this is just not an ordinary job. You are actually seeing miracles happen every day, that Boys Town saved the lives of these men and now women, and we're continuing that mission on today. So that's why it's a great place to work and be part of, because you do see it changing lives every day.
Yeah, Gabby, for me, so I started in the field about 30 years ago in Arizona and got involved in the field just because I wanted to learn about human behavior and just try to become the best human being that I could. And I grew up here in Omaha, and so I knew about Boys Town, and really what drew me back here was the mission and the statue of, at the time, the two brothers.
Yeah.
And the He Ain't Heavy, and just that spirit of us carrying one another through difficult times. And then really where I fell in love with the mission is just seeing the power of kind of the human spirit to be able to transform adversity into meaning and purpose and creativity and all the things we get to witness our kids and our families do every day here. So that's what keeps me going and keeps me kind of on fire for the mission, what Father Flanagan started.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I think it's interesting too what you said about growing up in Omaha. I too grew up in Omaha, and we spent so much of our childhood driving down Dodge Street, driving past Boys Town and seeing that statue and seeing the monument and thinking, okay, yeah, I see Boys Town on a daily basis, but I might not know everything that Boys Town does. And when you work at Boys Town and you get to learn little by little all of the different aspects of what Boys Town does, from our residential program to our life-saving research to the model, which we're discussing today, it's really special. And Tom, I agree with you. It's not just a job, I think, for a lot of us. And so to be able to share that with everyone now during History Week is really special.
Definitely.
Indeed.
And so I say the Boys Town model. Well, Dr. Tyler, for those who might not be familiar with what that is, can you please tell us what it is, how was it developed, and how is it used today?
Yeah, so the model itself has an interesting story, because when we talk about the model, a lot of what Father Flanagan did, he innovated by learning from the boys at the time. And so he learned the importance of teaching them the social skills they needed to be able to resolve problems and conflicts with each other, the importance of a good education. He empowered their voice, and he taught them self-government and democratic principles to be able to govern themselves, and to make good decisions together as a community and to become good citizens. So all of this, he just kind of started organically by learning from the kids. And then about 50 years ago, Father Robert Hupp, who was the second successor of Father Flanagan, noticed that society was going through some changes, and the boys and the families were starting to experience different kinds of stressors. So he welcomed some researchers from the University of Kansas who developed a model called the Teaching Family Model. And they brought that here in 1975. And so that's why we have the family homes that we have today, is because that model was brought here. And what was interesting is the components of that model were the same things that Father Flanagan started over 100 years ago. Teaching kids skills, teaching them the importance of relationships, teaching them self-government, teaching them leadership skills and how to work together and how to solve problems. And then we added in the moral and spiritual element, because that was very important too for the boys to be able to have a good compass. And then all of that was surrounded by that family environment and that community spirit. And then what the model developers did is they manualized it. And so we were able to define exactly how we did those things so that we could train others to do it, so that we could evaluate if they were doing it correctly. We could supervise them. We could create data systems. So you can hear me now getting more into the future, right? Data systems to make sure it's done correctly and it's producing the results that we want. And then that allowed Boys Town to be able to take that across the country and use the same approaches in homes and in schools. And that's where we're at today. Now we can use that model in a variety of different environments to help kids. But it all started with what Father Flanagan learned from the boys.
Anything to add, Tom?
I think that's totally correct what Patrick said. Father Flanagan often said, I do not have all the answers. I learned something new from every child that came to Boys Town. And he constantly was adapting and changing the Boys Town program to serve the needs of kids and families, just like we do still at the Village of Boys Town today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Father Flanagan, he famously rejected the idea of traditional or institutional orphanages. Why was that vision so revolutionary for the time back in 1917? And how does it still guide our work today? Tom?
Well, when Father Flanagan created Boys Town in 1917, there were not many programs for children. There were reform schools, terrible places where children would actually commit suicide. They're so violent. At most orphanages, some were good, some not too good. But usually when children became teenagers, they were expelled from the orphanages. They didn't want to deal with teenagers. Girls would go to families to be a servant or a maid, and boys often were just turned loose and just abandoned at 13 or 14 to the streets and to wandering around the country. And Father Flanagan rejected that. He said children need to be loved and cherished and protected, given an education, given skills, so they can take care of themselves when they become adults and productive citizens. So he proposed a very radical concept in 1917 saying, have the children come live with me. I'll give them an education, love, teach them a trade, and then have them go to live in a family or give them skills that eventually they can take care of themselves, all with love, without corporal punishment or verbal abuse. And again, very radical concepts for its time in 1917 in America, if not around the world.
Mm-hmm. And he got a lot of pushback for this, right, Tom?
He did. He was denounced in the press. The courts were against him, many police agencies. Many people said it would never succeed. But eventually, President Franklin Roosevelt said America needed 49 more Father Flanagans, one for every state and territory, because his ideas were adopted across America. And even today, many of the standards we have in childcare today in America were devised by Father Flanagan right here in the Village of Boys Town over the decades when he was director.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And of course, our mission is to change the way America cares for children and families. But recently, the Boys Town model and Father Flanagan's principles, they're being adapted all across the world. So, Tom, tell us a little bit more about that and what that's looking like.
Well, when Father Flanagan created Boys Town again in 1917, he had really radical ideas and concepts of working with children and families. And eventually his ideas began to spread around the world, especially after the movie Boys Town in 1938. That was a sensational film showing his practices and concepts and theories actually taking place here in the village of Boys Town. And he was contacted by numerous child care facilities all across the world. Were writing to Father Flanagan, and just individuals too, just saying, I would like to open my own Boys Town. And it led to different organizations around the world adapting concepts and ideas from Father Flanagan. One of them was a priest named Father Hurtado who came to Chile in about 1941. He visited Boys Town, followed Father's concepts, went back to Chile, and he is now Saint Hurtado. His ideas he's now a saint in the Catholic Church, and he created programs similar to Boys Town throughout Chile. But you can go to Asia, you can go to Europe, Africa. Of these programs on concepts of Father Flanagan spread around the world. And here in our archives at Boys Town, we have letters from just about every continent, people writing to Boys Town saying, how can I open a Boys Town? Do you have some ideas and concepts how we can do that?
And what would you add, Dr. Tyler?
Yeah, so we've been fortunate the last couple of years to start to make friends with our colleagues around the world that have adopted, some of Father Flanagan's principles. And last year, we were able to get some of the boys and girls from Boys Town here in Nebraska together with some of the kids in Spain and Colombia that are applying all of Father Flanagan's approaches. And it was remarkable to hear the kids talk to each other and to see how much they had in common, the common challenges that they're all facing on 3 different continents. But then as they talked about the things that they valued most about being in their towns, because these are 3 different towns established for kids with those democratic principles, they talked about the importance of having that voice, to being empowered, the importance of self-governance, the importance of a good education, and the importance of learning those skills to be a good member of the community and of society. And when Tom was talking, one of the things I think was just so genius of what Father did is he took kids from the streets and he took their street smarts and helped them transform those into leadership skills. And today in the corporate world, we call those power skills. They're the exact same skills, right? And those are the skills we need now to be able to advance in this technological age. Those are the skills that Father Flanagan was doing with the kids, but he was helping them transform those skills they were already bringing with them and then apply those in a pro-social way so that they could be good leaders in their community. And that's what we hear from the kids when they talk to each other with kids from other parts of the world that are in the same types of towns.
Yeah, and that definitely plays into what we do at Boys Town with our mayoral elections. So, Tom, for those who are watching that might not be familiar, what are the elections that we have every year?
Well, Boys Town is an incorporated village. We have our own zip code. We were incorporated in 1934 by Father Flanagan. He wanted to teach the children about democracy and equality because some of the boys, due to the race or their religion, might not be able to vote if they were to go back home again. So he wanted them to understand everyone has the right to participate and vote in elections. And especially coming from his native Ireland. At that time, it was a colony and there was not much freedom for many people there. So he saw the importance of democracy and how important that was. So he organized elections here in the village, and the only people who got to vote were the children. The only adult ever allowed to vote was Father Flanagan. The boys allowed that. But otherwise, since 1930s through today, the children of Boys Town every May elect one of their own to be their mayor. And then he or she represents the village of Boys Town as the mayor and is kind of the advocate for the children here in the village of Boys Town. And they have campaigns, they put up posters, they give speeches, as just like any election might be. I was at the last election when they announced the winner, and it's just amazing to hear all the boys and girls cheer for one of their own, that they're going to be the mayor of the village of Boys Town. And this program, again, was adopted by Boys Towns around the world, especially when we heard from our Boys Towns that were in Spain, because at one time they had a dictatorship under President Franco. And so there were no public elections taking place in Spain except at the Boys Towns of Spain. They still were having their own elections there, teaching the boys and girls there about democracy, equality. And those are all very important to Father Flanagan, and it's important they're carried around the world. It's actually after World War II, the Allied powers requested Boys Towns be created in Germany and in Europe and then also in Asia, so the children in those countries could understand what democracy and equality was. And Father Flanagan helped to create those before he passed away in 1948.
So just to emphasize that point, in Spain at that time, the only democracy was a democracy of children. And they are very, very proud of that. And the kids in that town are very proud of that. I was able to go out and visit them last year. And that is something that, they really recognize as a part of their heritage. And their self-government process is very strong. There's very good democracy in that town.
Yeah. And this just goes to show we have so much to learn from kids, whether it's our Boys Town kids or the kids in Spain. We all, especially at Boys Town, we try to learn a lot from each other as we're kind of growing in our careers. But sometimes we just need to take a day and spend time with the kids, and we can learn so much from them. Yeah.
I love that.
That's true. And so Boys Town success isn't just about compassion. It is backed by decades of data and research. So Patrick, can you explain some of the science behind the Boys Town model and the measurable outcomes that it produces for our children and families?
Sure. So I won't get too much into the numbers, but yes, we have 30 years of published research on our youth care programs, over 600 peer-reviewed articles. So these are scientific articles that have been reviewed by other researchers. But the important things are, what are our programs doing to help kids and families? And so what we know is that our kids in the family home program, their behavior is getting better, their emotional distress is going down, their academic performance is improving, and one really important outcome is that their hope increases while they're here. So we can measure hope. And so they start to really believe in having dreams and knowing the steps they need to take to accomplish those goals and those dreams. And so it's a wonderful thing when we can see the impact of increasing hope in kids. When we look at our families, what we see is that the parents start to have more confidence in using those parenting strategies to help their kids improve their behavior and do better in school. Their parental stress, their caregiver strain decreases. And then for families that are really struggling with resources, their ability to be able to find those resources to take care of their families increases and improves. When we look at the long-term outcomes of our kids, so these are when our kids become adults themselves, we see that their educational attainment, their employability, their citizenship, all those things that we work so hard with while they're here are spectacular and just as good as the national norm. So when you think about some of the challenges that they face when they come here, what they have to overcome, they don't look any different than other adults when they're working and they're going to school and in college. Another key outcome is that they spend more time with their kids. And so those values of spending time with family and with their children to raise their children are very strong. And then when we talk about the schools, because we're also in schools, right, we get to see that our model helps teachers improve the relationships that they have with students. Teachers feel more confident in being able to manage their classrooms. And student behavior and student attendance is better when that model is in place. So those are just some of the things that we evaluate. And in this day and age, we have to conduct evaluation trials to make sure that our programs produce those outcomes. Many of our programs are on what's called evidence-based clearinghouses. So those are public registries where any parent can go to look to see, does this program work? What would it do to help my child or my family? And so we're very proud that those programs are on those lists. And then most importantly, we continue to evaluate those to make sure that they're being implemented correctly. So those outcomes that we've seen, we know we'll continue to get. And if we don't get those outcomes, then we know we need to start making adaptations and changes, because sometimes society changes, new needs emerge, right? And we need to make sure that we respond to those needs so that the programs are always doing the best for kids and families.
Mm-hmm. And when you say needs, the first one to me that comes to mind is the growing mental health crisis that youth are facing in America. And so Boys Town, we do a ton of work with that and kind of, tweaking the model as needed and adapting it to kind of help with those kids. And of course, we have the Boys Town National Hotline as one of our resources. We have the behavioral health clinics and so many more. So if you're interested in learning more about how Boys Town cares for youth struggling with mental health, we'll go ahead and leave info on that in the description of this video. But that one is just one of, I'm sure, many that you are working with.
Indeed, and that drives a lot of our research agenda. So when we see, okay, are there new causes to why our kids are struggling with their mental health? Obviously, COVID had a big impact. We've seen an increase in youth that come to Boys Town reporting more symptoms associated with trauma because of just all the stressors that families and kids were under during COVID. That hasn't gone away. We look at the impact of social media, and there's a lot of good things in social media, but social media also is having a negative impact. Even though kids are more interconnected digitally, they're more isolated. They feel more alone. So rates of anxiety and depression and suicidality and substance use are going up. And so we're looking to see, okay, what can we do in those spaces, in those digital spaces, to provide children the resources they need to be able to navigate that so they can get the best of the digital world, right? But also be able to mitigate those challenges that they're facing that are causing some of those mental health stressors. And then equipping parents with the same tools too, to be able to help their children navigate that. Last year, we worked with our state senators here in Nebraska. And, we asked them, what are some of the most important issues that families are facing right now that you need research on to be able to help guide some of the laws and some of the policy? And social media and the impact on child development was the number one issue that was on the list. And so we partnered with researchers at the University of Nebraska, Lincoln, Omaha, and the Kim Foundation to put research together for our state senators. And they, with the governor, were able to pass some laws this year to help kids stay safe on social media. So those are just some of the things we're trying to do to work together with kids, families, and policymakers to address those needs that emerge in society.
Yeah. Wow. And to even look forward to the future and kind of thinking ahead on the even greater global impact beyond a national impact to really innovate and work with those leaders is really impressive. So we look forward to sharing those updates as we can on our social media pages on what Boys Town's doing with it. Awesome. Well, we've got one more question for you. Thank you for everyone who has liked this video and left a comment. So I just want to remind everyone before our last question that if you're interested in winning this awesome swag bag with these Boys Town goodies, go ahead and like this video and leave a comment. And please share it too. Share it with someone who you think might be interested in learning more about the Boys Town model. I see someone in the comments here left an amazing comment. She said, "My 90-year-old husband is a proud Boys Town alumni. I will tell him about this. He left Boys Town in 1954. That's
awesome.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you for watching. Okay, so finally, what do you both hope that people take away from understanding Boys Town's global impact and the power of this model to change the lives of children and families everywhere? Tom?
I think it's in the testament of our children that have come to live with us. Just this week here at the Hall of History, we had one of our young ladies come back. She graduated in 1996. She worked for us after school here in the Hall of History, and now she's successful in a corporate job living in Chicago in the dream home she always dreamed of. And she told us, when I lived here, I learned all these skills. And in my 20s, I thought, I really don't need those. Now she looks back and said, those are the best skills I ever learned because now she's successful. And when you talk to people even around the world connected to Boys Towns there, they say the same thing, that their lives have been saved and it continues on. Because Father Flanagan said the work will continue, and that's what we do today, just not here in America, but around the world, helping children and families to be successful. And that was very important to Father Flanagan, and that was his goal, was to save the children of the world also.
Yeah, that was very well put. Tom's always tough to top. I'll say, the heart of the model is, so here's the golden rule. It's taking care of the adults closest to the kids. So everything we do is trying to support the adults so that the adults can provide our kids with the love and the nurturing and the skills so that they can grow and develop, and we have strong and robust communities. And that's what we're trying to do with our partners around the world. And what we're finding is, in this day and age, because the digital world has really connected us all, we all have the same types of problems that we're facing. And so families around the world are facing the same types of uncertainties. And the best way for us to address those problems is to learn from one another and to explore our differences, right? Because that's where we're going to see some of our blind spots. And that's where we're going to come up with probably the best solutions as we combine some of our ideas together. And if we can get all of us adults on the same page, because that's the whole point of this, right? Then we can provide much better communities for our kids. And to your point earlier, and if we listen more closely to the kids, they're probably going to guide us through this digital age better than we can ourselves.
Yes, I agree. Well, thank you both so much for explaining to us the impact of the Boys Town model and how it continues growing and changing and, you know, saving our children and families across the world. So many thanks to you both.
Thanks for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another live during Boys Town History Week. We will be live one more time tomorrow, and it might arguably be the most fun. We're going to do some trivia at the Hall of History, so Tom will be there, and you should join us live and see, you know, after History Week, how much have you learned? How much can you guess about Boys Town in the trivia game? And of course, we'll be doing another swag bag giveaway. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we will see you tomorrow at noon Central. See you later.
All right. Bye-bye.